hoping doesn't really do anything for you, right? I did every networking group I could find, and most of them were not the people I wanted to work with at all.
That's Amy Weir. Amy has run her graphic design studio for the past 20 years, entirely on referrals and repeat clients. No funnels, no cold calls. Amy turns away people who push for fast turnaround times, and her studio is booked. But for the first 15 years, Amy was overworked and undercharging and drove herself to the point where she needed a cortisone injection. In the next half hour, Amy walks through what changed. Her 4-week email system that she uses to bring new non-profit clients on board without ever selling. The first move you should make if you're overworked, burnt out, undercharging, and saying yes to everything. And the strangest client she's ever brought on board 2 years after meeting her. I'm Jo McKee. If you're in the first few years of your business and you are overworked and undercharging, this is the conversation you needed last week. What's the most expensive yes you've ever said to a client? Not in dollars, but in what it cost you.
I think the most expensive, yes. I was asked to, this was probably 10 or 15 years ago. I was working on a Flash animation, which I didn't know how to do very well, but it was a lot of changes and just teeny tiny mouse clicks all day long. And the video was very long. And so I was clicking and clicking and clicking for days, it felt like. And by the end of it, I couldn't move my hand.
Oh, no.
I had tendonitis and I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that my wrist hurt and I could barely use it and I still had other work to do. And so luckily one of my other clients is a sports therapist. And so I went to him and he gave me a cortisone shot and I learned what not to do. So it was very expensive, both in terms of cost and just my physical health. But it was a very valuable lesson, not to work like that as much as I can because it's just not physically sustainable.
It's definitely an ouch that you don't forget in a hurry. That's terrible.
For sure. And so now when I'm working a lot, I know when I feel that little click in my wrist, it's time to stop and put on a wrist brace and take a break. So that I don't do that again.
What's the difference between, I guess, hoping for referrals and cultivating a way that is going to actually see them come in the door more reliably? Talk about that one.
Hoping doesn't really do anything for you, right? You can hope all day and no work comes. And so I think if you're at least cultivating referrals, you're at least putting in some effort, and really nothing over time is going to happen without your effort. I do think cultivating referrals takes a long time. It's not a quick fix. And so, it shouldn't, I think, be your only strategy. But, I've found over time doing good work for people, being the kind of person that somebody wants to work with, doing my job properly. Those are the things that over time people know they can rely on me and they know I'm nice to work with and that I treat them fairly and that I'm good to do business with. And so then they're more likely to refer me to other people. I'm also very clear. I ask them when I'm done with a project, especially, that's the best time to ask somebody for a referral is right when you're done working with them and they're really happy with you and they love the work. Then it's a great time to say, hey, I loved working with you on this kind of project. Are there any other yous out there that you know of that you could send to me? I think it also, another great place to find referrals is people that you work with, like colleagues or people in your industry. So I'm in a bunch of networking groups and co-working groups with other creative folks. Some are writers, designers, interior designers, all kinds of people. But we've all gotten to know each other over time, and we're not necessarily selling to each other because we're all business owners. As we get to know each other, when a client comes to me for something I can't do, I have this huge network now of people I can refer. And then the more I refer, the more those people refer to me. And so it can be a really great way to build that relationship and get referrals that way too. I'm also, one of the best things I've done in the last couple of years is joined a networking group here outside Seattle. We are all people who work in the nonprofit space. So most of them are grant writers or people who find people for boards or, all kinds of industries that I typically would have nothing to do with. But we're all working for nonprofits. And so I've gotten some of my best referrals and partnerships through that group. Now, and again, we're not selling to each other. We're talking about what it's like to run a business and the industry that we're in and what is affecting nonprofits right now. But through those conversations, we're kind of coming together in little groups and, I have a website developer who he'll pull me in when he needs help from a designer. And so, if I wasn't in that space with people who are working with my ideal clients, I think I'd be really missing out on a great way to get referrals.
I think the key to what you said there is that you're in a space of people who are working with your ideal client. It's not just, you haven't just joined
Mhm.
some random networking event that can be a little bit of a time suck, but you've been quite strategic
Yeah,
with that, which I think a lot of people miss.
I think so. And I know when I started out, I did every networking group I could find. And most of them were not the people I wanted to work with at all. Um, And so I was really in the wrong space and it was a waste of time. And so I've learned over time, if I want to get a certain type of client, I need to be where they are or, with people that are surrounding them. Because otherwise it really is it's a waste of my time and it's a waste of theirs.
Mm,
Because I might still work with them anyways if they asked, but it's not the best use of my time or theirs if we're
mm.
not in the right space like
It's a
that.
great insight for people because, as I said, they usually just sign up as you did earlier,
Hmm.
to the nearest networking event. But filtering that out is much
Exactly.
much more mindful of your own resources too and time. Referrals, I imagine it would have a ceiling. Have you found that, or have you had to do anything else about that?
Um, I think I've gotten lucky in that really all of my business right now is repeat and referral, and it has been that way
Hmm.
for years.
Hmm.
Um, so I find, yes, there's only so many people that you can ask for referrals if you're only asking people that you work with or that you're in groups with. Um, but I think if you're doing that consistently and have a big enough net, there's enough
Mm.
coming in at times that, I don't want all of them to refer someone to me all at once anyways. So, as long as I have a wide enough net and people coming back to me, so far it has not been a problem for me that I'm
Mm.
like kind of sitting here twiddling my thumbs. Who can I ask now?
Yeah, that's great. You've said, as far as running your business, what worked in your 30s doesn't work now.
For
Um,
sure.
yeah, what was the moment that you realized that something had to be done differently, had to change?
So I think there were two. The first one, I got married when I was 39 and I had my son at 40. And so up until that point, I think I'd been in business, I think almost 10 or 12 years by then. I was used to working all night, 6 or 7 days a week because I could. Um, and when you have a baby, you cannot do that anymore. So that was a rude awakening to me, because I always thought, oh, well, he's sleeping and it'll be fine. And, he never slept.
Damn.
Yeah. So I really had to learn to prioritize my time better, and just to say no to some things. And also, that's when I really started getting help. So right now, I have a almost full time contractor that works for me, and I've got other people that I pull in when I need help. And that was really when I started making that a priority, because there's only so many hours in the day, and I needed to spend whatever time I could taking care of someone that really couldn't take care of himself at all.
Yes.
Um, so I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I have also found, just in the last year or two, as I've gotten older, I seem to have hit some internal biological milestone, something that, if I work until about midnight, I am just useless the next day. Like sleep is really needs to be a priority now in a way that didn't even 5 years ago. So that has also really made me rethink how much I'm working and making the best use of that time so that I'm physically able to still do what I need to do.
It's true. I've experienced that. I'm about to turn 55 and I used to
Mhm.
love working in the evenings. And
Yeah.
now it's like that's an anathema. It's like, "You've got to be kidding, I don't wanna do that."
Yeah,
So,
that too.
sometimes
I
I
don't
need
want to
to,
be
but
doing
I
that.
yeah, it's funny how it just flips, and I do not wanna do it
Yeah.
often at all now.
Mm,
It certainly becomes more of a priority to just make sure that you're refueling properly and physically looking after yourself and getting enough sleep. And
exactly.
I think just you know we remember the hustle culture, I suppose, and it's yeah, it's just coming to a point of dropping that and building. That's one of the reasons I do this podcast actually, is to share stories of how people are building businesses to suit who they are and
Mhm.
not fitting into somebody else's template. And I love that you've seen what had to change and you're doing that for yourself. So it's
And
a
it's
great
a hard
example.
lesson to unlearn. I still struggle with that,
Yeah.
it's and I think it's also in my nature to just I love what I do. I love designing, and so I want to be creative and I wanna be doing all these things, but it's hard to unlearn, A, that I can't do that all the time, and B, just that the hustle culture is not serving me at all, and I don't need to do that anymore. There has to be a better way.
That's I think so, and just building systems that work for you. So
Mhm.
as far as making it sustainable, and I'm not talking about the mindset shift, but structurally in your day, what does that look like now? How have you made those changes?
So I am trying to be really better with boundaries. Um, so I think it starts there. When a project comes in, I ask clients, how long do we have here? What does the deadline look like? And if people are asking for things that are really fast, and I know based on my schedule whether or not that's possible, I've gotten much better at pushing back on that and saying, yes, I can do that, or I can't do that, but I can do this. Um, really trying for myself to spread things out a little bit so that I'm not trying to cram everything into today and then assuming tomorrow will take care of itself.
Yes.
Yeah, because that doesn't really work.
It's funny,
And
I work
then
fast. I do on that, I
yeah.
work fast. If I see an ad needs to happen for a client, I will have that ad built and up and running in 15 minutes. But if somebody
Mhm.
comes to me and says, "I need this done fast," I actually refuse to work with them as a client. It's like, "Don't you dare push me."
Good for you. Yeah, I
So
tend to work fast too. And I used to make it a point of pride that I would like tell clients like, "Oh, I'm really fast. I can get this done for you." And I had to stop myself from saying that, just because I can do it fast doesn't mean I want to or should.
yes, it
Um,
becomes a problem when people are pushing for it, I think is the difference. It's and
yeah.
So do
Mhm.
you have different, blocks of time that you flow with that through the day that just work well for your energy levels, or are you a little bit more sort of ad hoc about it? How does that look on
It
your
sort of
schedule?
depends on the projects I have on hand. So I also have, as I mentioned, I have a contractor who works for me almost full time. Um, and so I make sure that I'm offloading enough to him to clear my plate a little bit. And I still
Mhm.
struggle with that a little bit that, like, I know I can do this in 5 minutes, but no, give it to Jeremy, let him take care of it. You do something else. So that's been helpful too, to sort of free up some of my time. And then I think my energy levels tend to be best in the morning. So, I'll get up in the morning, check email, sort of figure out my plan for the day, figure out what exactly has to be done today versus what could wait until tomorrow or some other deadline. Make sure Jeremy has what he needs. Then I drive my son to school. I come back, I'm in my office, and, I try to get as much really creative work done before lunch because I find that's just when I'm the most upbeat and excited about the day and have the most energy. I start
Mm.
to flag a little bit in the afternoons. And then I do some work in the evenings most days, just because then it's quiet and I don't have to answer the phone. My son is 12, so he doesn't really want to hang out with me in the evenings. I don't feel like I'm missing out on too much there.
I think
So
having the
try.
freedom that we do these days more and more to design it to suit our own individual energy flows without sounding too
Mhm.
woo woo, it's actually a really powerful unlock for getting things done efficiently and not having to
Absolutely.
account to anybody as to how you do that. But it just works.
Mhm.
And it's as individual as each of us are.
Yeah.
You've talked about how every yes is a no to something else. How do you calculate those decisions?
Um, I think so they're, the costs are cost to health, whether it's physical or mental, and I talked about some of those already. There's cost missing out on time with family or friends or whoever's in your life. There's cost to your balance, work-life balance. Um, I find there's a cost to I have to weigh what I need to do versus what I want to do.
Mhm.
um, Creatively, I would love to do more writing and do embroidery and learn how to crochet and paint and do all these things. But if I'm saying yes to work, I'm saying no to that. Like, you can't do it all. Um, so with anything that comes in, I'm trying to be really conscious instead of just saying yes to work and then figuring out what else is the no for that scenario. Um, I'm trying to take those other things into account when I say yes to work. Um, and figuring out if I say yes to this, can someone else do this so that I can do some of these other things that I want to do and still make a little bit of money, hiring this out. Um, or is there some other reason I need to say yes to this? And then if that's the case, what am I saying no to? And then sort of juggling some of those pieces. So I find lately, mostly what I'm saying no to is me, the things that I would love to be doing. Um, but I think I'm just sort of in that. I think that's just my phase of life right now. I've got a kid in middle school and I'm volunteering at school and trying to do work and trying to do all these things. And so I've accepted that for the time being, my main no is things that I really want to be doing versus work. And I know that that will shift in the next couple of years. And then I can start saying yes to some of those and maybe saying no to some of the work or something else.
I just want to say, because I can't help myself, try and make some time for the things that matter to you. It
Hmm.
might sound so cliche, but if it's 15 minutes, even before you start your work, just don't let that go. Even
Yeah,
I feel like if this might be completely wrong and you might not need this, and I might be sounding off here, but you don't want to find in a few years that you've just neglected that and that, yeah. Anyway, I will
that's
leave that
true.
right there. Coming back just to the referral things, you've talked about warm email too. What does that look like in your system?
So I have a list of different types of clients that I want to work with. So I target nonprofit organizations. And so I have at the moment, this batch I'm doing right now, I think I have 20 organizations here in the Pacific Northwest. They're all kind of educational related nonprofits. And so I have a 4-week kind of email system, where the first week I just email them and just ask, I introduce myself. I love what you're doing. Do you work with outside designers? And if so, should we talk? That's it. And then if they say yes, great, then we talk. And if they don't say anything, then I'll send a second email that just sort of reminds them again who I am. Maybe I'll send a little sample of something. Um, Short and sweet. And so it's 4 weeks of just a very brief touch point just to see if they even work with designers because I don't want to waste their time or mine. But I want them to know who I am. And so then at the end of 4 weeks, most of the time I don't hear anything, which I think is pretty typical. Um, then I add them to my newsletter. And so then once a month, I'm keeping in touch. And, a couple times I've had people, months later finally respond and want to talk to me about a project.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
so it's warm in the sense that they're in my market. There's a very specific reason that I'm reaching out to them. Um, but it's very simple. I just want to know if you work with other designers, and if you do, great. And if you don't, I will leave you alone.
Simple is good. I've had people on
Hmm.
my email list who have watched my work, I suppose, for a couple of years before they
Hmm.
then reach out.
Yeah.
And staying top of mind with people should never be underestimated. And email is a fantastic, inexpensive way to do that. And I know that I bought a course once and I watched her for 9 years before I bought that course. So
Hmm.
I always keep that in mind. when people think it's not worth,
Yeah.
staying in touch with somebody,
Mhm.
sometimes it's just not the right time. Or
Exactly.
in the case of me with that course, I was not the person I needed to be to believe that that course would be good for me, that I knew other people were finding it useful, but
That's a good
that
point
I could.
too.
And so I had to change, and I
Mhm.
guess I'm a slow learner. But literally, I watched this coach for 9 years go from small beginnings to growing her business
Mhm.
and the successes of other students before I bought that course, and I was very glad I did. So
It really is
email
all about timing, I think.
yeah, and email is, I think, one of the most effective ways to do that,
Mhm.
even in the age of AI, even in the age of social media and all that sort of thing. As we know, it's your own audience. It doesn't get shut down
Yeah.
with an algorithm change for a start. But
Mhm.
it gives you time, it means they'll see the post. If your subject line's
Yeah, I
when they open
think
the email.
yeah, as long as the emails are written authentically,
Mm,
I totally agree. I get emails all the time that it's clearly, a Claude prompt or ChatGPT
spam,
or
yes.
something that every single person sending me that email is using it, and so
Yes.
clearly that's not gonna work, but I think, I save when I get emails from people, even if I don't need them right now. Um, as long as it's a real person asking a real question,
Mm.
that's I think that's all it takes.
It's exactly right. If somebody's in a burnout phase right now, or overwhelmed in their business, and they're saying yes to everything, and they're undercharging, and they're running on fumes, what's the first thing they should change? What the
And
thing that's going to scare them most?
it is, it's
I
terrifying.
lo-
I still am nervous to do that.
yes.
But if you are charging appropriately, um, even if you're doing all that work, you're getting more money in that you could then use to get help.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, if people don't want to pay that higher price, then they will self select out and that frees you up, but you're making a little bit more on what you do have. And so it's not as big of a hit. So that would be the
Hmm.
first thing I would do is raise rates. Even if it's only on new things that are coming in and not necessarily some existing things that you have or people that are repeat, it's easy to start raising rates on people who don't know you as well.
Mm, mm.
But
It's
if you're
true.
doing per project, like there's nobody who can say, oh, it's not going to take you that long because they don't know.
Mm.
And if they do tell you they know how long it's going to take you to do something, then maybe you don't want to work with them because they think they know more than you.
It's a great filter. It's actually why I put prices for my services on my website. I've literally
It's a
listed them
great idea.
as products because it just
Hmm.
I actually have had a couple of people ask me how much because they wanted to save up so they could work with me. And
Yeah.
so I just thought, well, for the dual purpose, put it out there for that reason and also to just filter people who maybe want, cheap, but whether that brings the result they need or not is another question.
Yeah.
And it's been really great. So, but I know when you say raise rates, that's the first thing that will scare people. I love that you've said it because it is very effective.
Hmm.
And, really great advice.
It's
Yeah.
scary no matter when you do it, but,
Yeah.
everybody does. So, I
What's
know
the
the last
most
time I did it,
sorry.
I was nervous too, and probably half of my clients said, "Oh, yeah, everybody else is raising theirs. We've been expecting this." So,
Easy.
you know,
Yeah, yeah. I've, I just wanted to ask you, what's the most unusual, I guess, story of how a client heard about you or came to you over the years?
um, let's see. So, there was one client that, I went to a nonprofit conference. This was probably 8 years ago. And I was in a social media session. And so I just sat down at a table and started talking with 5 other people. And, we were just chatting about what was working and what wasn't. And, we all introduced ourselves, but I wasn't trying to sell anything. I was just there to learn. Um, and after the conversation was over, said goodbye to everyone and left. And I was kind of kicking myself for not like leaving business cards or anything like that, but I wasn't there to be salesy. And about 2 years later, one of the women who'd been sitting at that table found me because she remembered what we had talked about and hired me. And I've been working with them ever since. And I had
Lovely.
no idea at the time that just being present and just talking and being open and friendly was gonna get that client because that was not my intention. Um, so you never know where somebody's gonna come from.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Is there anything else that you'd like to just share with listeners, I suppose, who are building their business and wanting to do it in a way that fits them and feeling a bit stuck right now?
I think really think about what your end goal looks like, or what your ideal day looks like, or how you want to feel when you're working. I think that sort of gives you the structure or the basis to figure out then where those pieces go. So like if you know that you always want to have free afternoons on Wednesdays, or that you want to be able to do a certain thing, if you know kind of what your baseline is, then you can figure out how much work you need or how much help you need in order to get rid of some of that work. And you can make better decisions about who you're going to work with and what you say yes to, if you know kind of what your baseline is. So I would think about that and just think about how you want to feel too, because maybe that will help guide whether or not you work with some people. I know I've fired clients before because they just didn't make me feel good. I felt icky when they called me.
Oh,
Um,
it's great
and so I
advice.
think, yeah, I think there are lots of things like that. Think about how you want to feel and how you want your ideal day to be structured, and then build that.
Amy, that is fantastic advice. It might sound simple, but when we actually take the time to do it and we can
Hmm.
picture it, then we build it. And that's,
Exactly.
where the imagination can lead where you want to go. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, Amy.
My pleasure. This was wonderful.
If this conversation gave you something you can use this week, subscribe so the next one lands in your feed. And if you know someone who needs to hear it, send it to them. I'll see you on the next one.